didn't hear the front door click anymore. Most nights, I only heard compressors. The chug in my chest matched the whine of a rooftop unit kicking on. That was my life. Dispatch pings, parts orders, receipts turned into invoices. If you'd asked me to describe my marriage in 3 words, I would have said the monthly spreadsheet. Then, one Tuesday after a coil replacement ran late and my hands still smelled like flux and wet insulation, Megan set a mug down in front of me and said she needed to tell me something. Her voice didn't have edges. It was all cotton. I should have been prepared for another talk about the visa bill or the new scheduling software. What I wasn't prepared for was, it was a long time ago. I was looking for anyone who'd look at me like I was still a woman. The coffee stayed hot. My ears did too. The rest of me went floor cold. "I'm talking," she said, fingers around the mug like it could pick a side. "I'm talking about what I did, back then." "How long?" I said to the countertop. "Too long," she said, and then, "It didn't last. It was stupid. I hated myself. I hated you. I hated how our whole life was built on estimates and delivery windows and who forgot to schedule the propane refill." "Who?" I said, the word dragging, a nail pulled wrong. "It doesn't matter." "It matters to me." She looked at the window over the sink where our son's cleats leaned against the sill, mouths half open, grass stuck in the teeth. "Someone from the supplier," she said. "He doesn't work there now." I nodded like I knew his name. I nodded like knowing it would put any air back in the room. Megan was 38, our office manager and my wife, and for the last few years we'd spoken like coworkers on a narrow bridge. "Did you log that job? You forgot the box fan at Henderson. We're over on filters again." When she said she wanted to be looked at like a woman, something in me flinched, defensive and small. I wanted to say I had looked. I had noticed when she cut her hair to her shoulders, when she switched mascaras, when she started wearing that blue sweater with the little row of imperfect buttons. But the truth was, I didn't look as often as I should have. I did 1,000 little things for the business and none of the big ones for us. "Say something," she said. "I am saying something," I told the laminate. "I'm saying it to the floor, apparently." "Tyler." "I'm here," I said, and that felt like the lie. I slept at the shop that night, on the little cot behind the wire cages where we keep the motors and belts. The smell of galvanized metal and cut PVC stayed in my throat. I set my phone face down on the service desk and listened, after midnight, to the ice machine knock and knock like a polite ghost. Around 3, when the streetlights draped their quiet over our trucks, I scrolled through our fleet app and stared at the breadcrumb lines of my routes, that neon spaghetti across our part of Indiana. I'd built my life like a wiring diagram. Clean lines, predictable loops. Somewhere outside the drawing, my wife had gone hungry. In the morning, I changed my shirt, not my face, and drove home with that after-midnight stillness rattling around under my ribs. Our place is a single story on a street of single stories, all cracked driveways and basketball hoops that lean toward the kind of kid who shoots long after dark. The kitchen light was on. Megan was at the table with a legal pad, which is how I knew she meant business. She only dragged those out when something was bleeding. She stood when she saw me. I didn't sleep. "I did," I said, because I didn't want to hand her the night. She looked at my shirt like it had the shop's address stitched above the pocket, like I was always representing the company, never the man. "If you want to leave, I'll make it easy," she said. "You want me to?" I asked. "I want you to tell me if you can be here without hating me." I pulled a chair back. The screech sounded like anger, or maybe it just sounded like 41 years old, tired and full of dust. "I can be here," I said. "I don't know what else I can be." "What do you need to know?" she asked. I'll tell you. I'll tell you everything." I thought of every YouTube video I'd swallowed in the last year, with a man's voice breaking in the back half. the ones where the comments played judge and jury. I thought of our boy's schedule stuck on the fridge with a magnet that said, "We fix what's broken, except in ourselves." "I need to know when," I said. "I need to know how long. I need to know if his name is going to come up on my caller ID ever again." "It won't," she said. "It was the year your dad died." "It was. I can't explain it without sounding like I'm blaming the dead." "I was gone a lot," I said. "You were gone, and also here and gone at the same time," she said. "That was the worst part. When you were home, I still couldn't find you." I thought of the times I'd come home smelling like heat from the roof, shoulder blades stiff from crouching around a unit in the wind. I thought of setting invoices on the console table and telling myself I'd apologize for missing dinner on the weekend, when the weather cooled and the phones stopped. Phones don't stop. They just ring quieter in your sleep. "I was the guy who kept air moving in other people's houses," I said, "and ours got stale." She flinched and recovered. "I am sorry," she said. "I didn't tell you because it was a mistake, and then it was over, and then it was part of the mud of that year, and then you got used to the size of your secret," I said. The words surprised me with how sharp they were. "You wore it until it fit." She breathed like she was bracing for a hit. "If you hate me, hate me. Say it. Don't give me floor answers." I didn't hate her. I hated the picture of us. I had been carrying around like a warranty card, something you put in a drawer and never look at until the day it stops working. "I hate that I didn't notice," I said. "I hate that you had to go find a pair of eyes somewhere else. I hate that I made it easy." She shook her head. "That wasn't." "It was," I said. "I was here and gone. I was a ledger with boots." She covered her face. "You don't get to take this from me," she said through her fingers. "You don't get to call my choice your fault. I did it." I could have asked for something different. I could have said, "Put down the phone and look at me." I didn't. I did the worst version of asking. We were quiet long enough to hear the hum of the fridge like a held breath. Our son came in then, hair all morning with a bat over his shoulder. "Coach says if I keep stepping out, I'll be hitting foul balls to the moon," he announced, unaware of the tectonic shift in the kitchen. "You'll find the middle," I said, surprised at how steady my voice sounded. "You always do." He twirled the bat like he'd seen on TV. "Can we go hit later?" he asked. "Tonight?" "We'll find the time," I said, and the words landed in me like a dare. After he left for school, we stood there in the kitchen with all the big appliances and none of the right tools. I told her I needed space. I told her I needed to not be in the house that day, that week. I told her I wasn't making decisions on adrenaline. She nodded like a defendant who expected a different judge. "I'll text you the game schedule," she said, "if you want to come." "If?" I repeated. "I don't know the rules anymore," she said. I spent the next few days living like a ghost with keys. I rotated through jobs with a precision that felt like penance. I was kind to customers who didn't deserve it. I lifted and bent and twisted until my back hummed and my mind went blessedly blank. When I did sit down, I found myself staring at our accounting software. I clicked through old months like I was flipping through a photo album. There it was, the quarter after my dad died, the line items blurring together. 2 lunches at the supplier that weren't ours. A batch of office coffee pods sent to the wrong street. A hotel bar receipt attached to a reimbursement request that made no sense. Little things, stupid things, things you could explain 100 different ways. But the weight of them settled. This was a different kind of proof than I'd ever needed. Not the kind that gets stapled to a legal notice, but the kind that tells you your body didn't imagine the drafts. When I finally went home at a decent hour, it wasn't to have a fight. It was to tell the truth. She was on the back steps with a blanket and a glass of water. The sky over our yard was that stale blue Indiana does when it can't decide between spring and forever. Crickets hadn't started yet, but the traffic a few blocks down gave a steady pulse. I sat. Neither of us reached for the other. "We lost us," I said. "Both of us! You cheated! That's yours. I turned our house into a break room. That's mine. I stopped being alive and started being a resource." Her shoulders used to be sharp. Somewhere in the last few years they'd softened without me noticing. "I have wanted you to say that for so long. I thought I made it up," she said. "It isn't an apology," I told her. "I know," she said, "but it's a sentence I can believe." "I'm not staying married to the ledger," I said. "I don't know if I'm staying married at all." "I can't ask you to," she said. "I can ask you to keep being his dad." "That I know how to do," I said. We tried for a month. It was clumsy and sad, like watching two people learn to dance on a narrow porch with a loose board in the middle. We went to one marriage counseling session where a woman in a tan cardigan adjusted her glasses and said words like boundary and repair, and the phrase that unhooked me, which was, "Do either of you feel safe?" I heard my own silence answer. At home, our conversations pinballed between adolescent. "I told you everything," Megan would say, and I'd snap back, "You told me now." I found myself reaching for the Fleet app in bed. Like if I could count trucks on a map, I could count the pieces of my life back into place. She found herself standing in doorways, staring at me like the outline of a missing person. We had our first real confrontation on a Thursday when the wind smelled like rain. I was putting my boots by the door. She stood with her hands in her back pockets like she does when she's nervous and annoyed at once. "Can you stop treating me like a customer you have to be polite to until I leave?" she asked. "I don't know how else to treat you," I said. "If I take the polite off, all that's left is angry, and I don't want our son to learn that word from me." "He already knows it," she said. "He knows it from Little League. He knows it from life. He needs to know what to do with it." "What do you want me to do with mine?" I asked. "Use it to say the real thing," she said. "Not the inventory answer, not the shop answer, the real one." I found the real one faster than I wanted. "I don't want you to be the person who did that," I said, and my voice went thin. "But you are, and I am the person who made it easy not to notice. I don't know how we climb out of that and still call this house a house." Her eyes went wet and stayed open. "Then maybe we don't." We didn't. I moved into the apartment above a friend's print shop down the road from our office. It smelled like paper and ink, and in the afternoons, like the food truck that parked out front and served tacos with lime that could raise the dead. I brought one truck home instead of 3. I hired a second dispatcher. I started leaving the shop before the bugs owned the windshield. On Saturdays, I would take our boy to the KFC field and throw him BP until my shoulder hummed. We'd sit on the silver bleachers and share a Gatorade like it was a secret. He'd ask the kind of questions boys lob like softballs when the world is shifting under their feet. "Did you ever hit a home run?" "How old were you when you moved out of your mom's house?" He never asked me the one I asked myself. "Did you ever stop being mad?" I wouldn't have known how to answer. I learned to say I wouldn't have known how to answer. I learned to say, "I will not be mad right now." There were nights, early on, where I'd be mid-swing with him and I'd imagine the version of my life where we fixed it. Where I took Megan's hand and said, "Okay, we break down the old unit, install new." Where we called it a system we could maintain. But then I would picture the night she spoke those cotton words and my own habit of answering the floor, and I would feel the slip of the wrench in my palm. Some things strip out when you're not looking. The second peak in the long roller coaster came the day Megan showed up at the shop with a bag of old jerseys and our son's glove, which had been hiding under the back seat of her car. I was working at the counter, hands raw from sliding a condensing unit out of a box too fast. She stood where customers stand, a stranger in a place where she used to sit behind the desk. "Can I talk to you?" she asked. I didn't make her wait for a slot. We stepped outside into the parking lot where the world was angled just enough to drain toward the street. The June heat had weight. "I want to tell you something," she said, "that I should have told you before you signed the lease and before I told my sister you were the villain because it made me smaller to say you were." "I'm listening," I said, and I was. "I didn't just want to be looked at," she said. "I wanted to know that if I disappeared, the house would notice, that someone would go, 'Where is Megan?' and not just, 'Where is the file?' When it didn't, I put myself somewhere, someone would say my name." She winced, already hating her own confession. It wasn't about sex at first, it was about being a noun. "You were always a person," I said, too quickly. "Not in our kitchen," she said. "In our kitchen, I was a line item." A wind pushed the smell of hot tar off the roof, that dizzy, summer sick smell. I surprised myself. "I don't forgive you," I said. "I do understand you." She nodded. "I'm not asking you for either. He has a tournament in Muncie next weekend. I know you probably already know because you check the app every 10 minutes. But I want to hear you say you'll come. Not for me, for him." "I'll be there," I said, and the words fit. That weekend, I drove behind her and our boy on the highway, a caravan of what we used to be. At the fields, under the kind of sky that makes you believe God is a fan of youth sports and redemption arcs, our son hit 2 doubles and struck out in a way that made his chin tremble and set his jaw at the same time. On the ride home, he asked if I could help him in the backyard that night, lights on, late. I said yes. I didn't even look at my phone before I did. I started taking fewer after-hours calls. The first time I let one roll to voicemail, I sat on my small apartment couch and waited for the world to punish me for not being the guy who always picked up. The punishment didn't come. The job for the swap-out of a failing heat pump waited until morning and still paid. I taught my foreman how to make the call I always made at 9,030. He made it. The world spun. It isn't bravery when you step away from the cliff you built with your own hands. It's walking. But walking, it turns out, is its own kind of courage when you've been sprinting so long you forgot your calves spoke English. I said yes to things that didn't smell like coolant. A Saturday morning farmer's market where our boy tried kettle corn and declared it too corn, not enough kettle. A Wednesday night, when we both ate dinner at the coffee table and didn't call it a failure. A Thursday where I turned my phone off and went to the river alone and watched rocks pretend to be lessons. After a year, we weren't enemies. We were 2 people who had touched the worst version of their choices and had to live with the fingerprints. Megan and I could talk without coughing up the past like a hairball every 5 minutes. Sometimes she'd drop off our boy and stay on the porch and tell me about the office, about how the new hire was funny and also a chaos tornado, and I'd tell her about a job where an old man cried when the air kicked on, and we'd stand there like coworkers, but kinder. The last time the story twisted, it did so without teeth. It was a hot August night at the Little League Park, one of those nights where the humidity bends the outfield lights into halos. Our boy stood in left, vibrating with attention. The crack of a bat sent a ball toward him. He tracked it, body language loud with certainty. He caught it like he'd done it in his dreams 100 times. The dads around me grunted and then let themselves cheer like it was safe. "Nice," I said to nobody but everything. Megan stepped up beside me, thumbs tucked into her pockets the way she does when she's not sure if the ground is finished moving. "He's found the middle," she said. "Yeah," I said. He has. We watched him jog in, the grin he tried to hide for his team, and failed. I felt something unclench in a place I hadn't known was knotted. Not relief, not forgiveness, just a space, enough for a breath that didn't scrape. "You look lighter," she said. "I feel like I took the resource sticker off my forehead," I said. She smiled, small and almost mean at herself. "I'm sorry for what I did," she said. She'd said it 100 times. This one landed like a cup on a table instead of like a card in a courtroom. "I know," I said. "I'm sorry for what I didn't." The kid next to ours slapped him on the helmet. The lights hummed. Someone's grandma laughed behind us like laughter was a decision you could make and be good at. Sometimes, I said, more to the field than to her. Growth shows up after you break the thing you were trying so hard to keep intact. Sometimes, she said, you don't know it's a cage until the door is gone. We stood in a silence that felt like a porch where no one was freezing to death. Our son lifted his glove toward the stands. I lifted mine right back, empty hand up like a promise instead of an oath. That night, after I dropped him off at her place and drove back to the shop apartment with the smell of paper and lime in my shirt, I sat on the edge of my bed and counted the ways my life had gotten smaller and the ways it had gotten bigger. Smaller, fewer calls, less adrenaline from being essential to every emergency. One fork in the drawer instead of 12. Bigger, a boy who wanted me under the lights. A set of lungs that didn't belong to the schedule. A version of myself that looked in the mirror and didn't see a logo first. People will want to know the measurements. How much did it hurt? How much did you heal? How many times did you wobble and not fall over? They'll ask about justice. Here's mine. I didn't set fire to anything but the old story about what I was worth. She lives with the shape of her choice. I live with the space my choice made. Our son lives with parents who show up. It isn't cinematic. It is finally, blessedly breathable. Months later, I stood with the other parents under those same humming lights. A moth circled a bulb like it had a reason to forgive the heat. Our boy stepped into the box and knocked a grounder past second. At first, I wanted to pull out my phone and capture it, datafy it, make it proof that a life was worth something, measurable and therefore real. Instead, I put my hands on the fence and let the chain links press little diamonds into my palm. The grass was loud. The world was a simple machine again. Wait, fulcrum, lift. I drove home on streets that remembered me kinder than I deserved. The window was down. Air moved where it should. For once, I didn't need to fix it. 2 questions for you. Where is the line between working for your family and working instead of loving them? If someone admits a past betrayal, is it ever your job to turn that confession into a future together? If this story hit you, like and comment to share your take, and subscribe for more first-person stories like this one.